Well, howdy me howdy. It is time for GTRC's GT3 Series Round 8 at Yas Marina. This was a fun race, and this was it was better for some people than others. Let's just go with that. But it's enough foreshadowing. Let's get into it. But before we actually get into the race itself, let's go into how the race is set up. We'll start with the calendar. So we just did Yas Marina. This is for Yas Marina. Round 8 of 9. We're near the end of this season, and it's been a fun one so far. It's been a lot of good racing so far between the field, and it's been enjoyable to both race in and to commentate over it like this. Alright, these are, as always, these are the cars that are permitted for the series. Everyone but McLaren has at least one driver and at least one of choice. Some are just one BMW. So there's one person in BMW, one person in Audi, one person signed up for the Aston, but I think we saw him early in the season, but we haven't really seen much of him since. There's quite a few people in the AMGs, quite a few Porsches. There's a few signed up in the Nissan, and like the Aston, we haven't really seen much of them. One person signed up in the Lexus, one in the Lambo. Ferrari is the only manufacturer that has two different models represented on track. One of our frequent drivers is in the 296, and the other is in the 458. They're both doing fairly well, I do believe. So, So. And each race is 1 hour long. It is preceded by a qualifying session consisting of in practice mode, a qualifying session of 2 hot laps after a out lap. So that's 2 flying laps, 2 opportunities to set the qualifying time. Once we get into the race, and actually for qualifying as well, tire wear is set at 3x normal. Fuel rate is 3x normal, which means for every lap raced, there is 3 laps worth of tire wear and 3 laps worth of fuel consumption. Your fuel rate is set to 8 liters per second. This is, quite frankly, agreed upon to not be too quick, but not be too slow either. Weather is set to random, so tracks where it can rain, it is a possibility. However, at Yas Marina, rain is not a factor here. For each race, assuming we don't enter wet territory, the required tire compounds are hards and mediums. Each tire must be ran for a minimum of 5 racing laps. Otherwise, a penalty is incurred. Coming into this round, Superboy holds a lead that has been shrinking all season long. It is down to 6 points, with Superboy at 119 points. Maple Syrup, or Ishmael as he also goes by, is at 113. Petrol is in 3rd at 88. Hellraiser in 4th at 76. Mike in 5th at 74. Barr is 6th with 70. Doug Barrows coming in at 7th at 51. Slack in 8th at 43. Type R and the Damcat are tied at 9th with 41 points apiece. Jerome Colby and the reservist Chant Tapp is tied for at 11th with 35. Eagle has 22 points, and ATB and you round out our point scatters with 17 apiece. Now, I mentioned our qualifying earlier. This due to a combination of events and perhaps a little bit of bad luck. We're down to 7 drivers for this field for this round. One of our drivers was ill, and others just had other commitments that prevented them from being on track with us this round. We see Ishmael has the pole, Superboy starting in second, Bar starting in third, Petrol in fourth, Doug Barrow in fifth, Tap in sixth, and the Damn Cat bringing up the rear in the Viper in seventh. And with that, we're going to get the show on the road. We'll start watching in the middle of the field here, coming as we go into our rolling start. See, not quite everyone was clear of the corner as we get underway, but such is the thing with rolling starts. Coming to turn one, everyone's going nice and clean. We see Bargo a little wide as he loses a position to Petrol right off the bat. He loses two positions as he also falls prey to Doug, who's moved into fourth. We have Ishmael here in the lead coming into the hairpin. Super has got a challenge early if he wants to maintain his lead in the points standings, or at least maintain that gap and maybe try to grow it, but he's got to be quick, fast, and in a hurry trying to challenge Ishmael, and we see it. Right now it's pretty close. Everyone nice and single file. No one really falling off the pack yet. This is the pair we really want to keep an eye on, because this is where the battle is on the points, the battle for the championship points lead. But right now we see Super is actually being threatened by Petrol here in third right behind him. Superboy does not want to let that Mercedes by. He wants to be challenging the Audi in front of him, not being challenged by the Mercedes. But as it is, Petrol moves into second place, so he can maybe move ahead and pull Super along to challenge Ishmael for the lead. Over through the rest of the field, we see already that Viper starting to lose touch. He seems to be struggling here, but that's to be expected with that car at this track. Going back to the front. See, both Ferraris get quite a bit loose coming out of the final corner to end turn in lap one. Everyone's trying to stay in the limits, which is good to see. Oh, we have a spin here coming out of turn one. Tap gets a spun around. He loses a position to the Viper. That's okay. We know Tap will close back in on him, right? Alright, so it's coming out of here, but Ishmael still has a lead, and it is growing. It's now about a second and a half to 2 seconds between Ishmael and Petrol, who's got a similar sized gap between him and Doug Barrow, who has moved into third place. But Supra is not, looks like he wanted to challenge back, but he may have just gotten out from behind Doug long enough to get a bit of fresh air in order to set up that exit from the chicane. So he reclaims third place from Doug Barrow. The problem these guys seem to have with Ishmael starting on pole is usually if this guy in the audience starts on pole, he goes the entire race unmolested and unchallenged. Is this going to be another one of those cases, or does someone find some pace to keep up with this guy and challenge him for the lead? Right now, Petrol's trying to keep up. It's closing ground here and there and losing ground here and there, so looks like if it's going to be anyone at this moment, it's going to be Petrol who challenges Ishmael for the lead. Right now, Superboy and Doug are in a tussle here for third and fourth, the bottom of the podium. And again, they both get a little slidey ways coming out of the final corner on the curve. They both keep the cars going in the right direction. And Doug gets one hell of a run out of turn one. He's trying to move up the inside of Superboy here. He is definitely not making it easy for Super to try to minimize damage to the leader here, to the Ishmael. Points wise, Super is still the points leader, but it's been shrinking all season long. See the 458 of Superboy. Seems to have slightly better pull down the straight than the 296 of Doug, but Doug is really closing in on a braking gear going into the chicane. However, Superboy is about to serve a penalty, so he's going to have to get off the line, and he's likely going to fall victim to Doug this time around. The question becomes, does Barr have a say in the matter? Is Barr close enough a challenge for fourth? Right now, the answer to that question seems to be no. Meanwhile, we have the Viper sitting here in 6th, chugging along. I think his goal is going to be just keep it clean, keep it pointed in the right way, and he just might be able to make a position or two if he's able to get a good pit strategy in. That's what I'm going to assume is his goal. But you see that light blue Mercedes of Tab coming up behind them, so Tab's got it going in the right direction again. Coming back to the front, we see Ishmael. He's got the lead still. He ain't been challenged yet. Petrol's close. It's maybe 3/4 of a second between first and second place right now. And there's a pretty big gap between second and third at the moment. I say that's about 5 or 6 seconds between Petrol and Doug, and Super's looking to claim some ground back up coming out of this hairpin. Think about that Barr sitting here in 5th. He is trying to keep up with these 2 Ferraris in front of him. This Porsche does not like this straight. It does not have the top end to really do much here. It's more of a handling car, this Porsche is, and for some people they don't even do that very well, but this guy seems to have at least a handling of the Porsche down pat. Compared to these 2 Ferraris in front of him, it doesn't have the grunt. Coming back to the front, we have Ishmael still in the lead. Petrol is about 1.5 seconds, maybe back. Not really close enough to challenge at this point, and he goes a bit wide. It's going to slow him down, let Ishmael build a little bit more space. We have Doug here in 3rd. He's being tailed by Superboy, but he's got about 1.5 seconds. Ooh, got a little slidey out of that corner. It's going to let Superboy close a little bit of ground up, but this Ferrari has another penalty. This track is notoriously difficult to pick up penalties. That's why you don't usually see it running in leagues, because it is a pain to enforce track limits, because you have to go back at the end of the race and watch everybody's laps, at least at certain points, where the track limits are just not very good. For the time being, got the 2 Ferraris here in 3rd and 4th. Going to see Superboy lose a little bit more ground to Doug once he serves his penalty. It's going to let him eventually fall into the grasp of Barr in the Porsche, assuming he doesn't spin her out there, but he kept it going in the right direction. GG's, we see the Viper of the damn cat just checking along. He's losing touch, but he's keeping close. That's trying to keep close at the same time. And we have Tap right there, closing in slowly but surely. Might turn into a battle here in a couple of laps between those 2 at the back. The battle for not last. But we're going to come back to the front here. Coming in this long sweeping left-hander, Ishmael's got about 1.5 seconds lead still over Petrol. Right now, it's possible that Petrol is just wanting to stay close, maybe not necessarily push too hard. Just keep the car pointing in the right direction. Keep relatively close to this Audi in front of him. Keep him in his sights at least. Around this technical sector here of the track. I mean, the final two corners. This is one of the corners that whenever we assess track limits for everybody. Those last two corners, we're going to have to keep an eye, check on everybody. Make sure they kept it nice and tidy through there. Turn one could be another problematic corner as well, coming out of it especially. You can go pretty wide out of there and not pick up a penalty. But you got that AstroTurf out there that can kind of hurt you. Which is not the case in the final two corners. You can go very wide and not pick up a penalty and have minimal risk of losing control of the car. It's really coming out of the final corner. If you go wide, just get on the curbing, and you can spread the car around. We see Superboy sliding around the hairpin, trying to close back in on Doug Barrow in front of him. We see he did not lose. Not only did he not lose position in the bar, he's pulling away from that Porsche. It looks like he's getting a run on Doug Barrow coming into the chicane here. Taking it very slow through there. Superboy gets a much quicker run out of there. Expect to see Superboy maybe try to make a move on the outside this time around. Still hold the defensive inside line. Superboy actually, nope, there it is. Superboy's trying to run around the outside, trying to take it the long way around. That inside line. Just that much better right now. Doug holds on the third place for the time being. He's got several more corners with a long way to go to keep this feisty Ferrari of Superboy behind him. And that was a dangerous cut there by Doug. I mean, these final two corners. Depending on the exit, Superboy might be able to get a run on him. And Superboy gets out in a way where he slides around the final corner. So it looks like he might be setting up trying to make a move on the inside, but Doug cuts that off. The further back Supra is from the front, the more Ishmael will be able to close in that lead, assuming he's able to hold on to it all race long. But that means for him to do that, he's going to have to hold on to the lead basically the entire race. Let's check on him in petrol. That's about a 2 to 3 second gap between the Audi and Mercedes. So at the moment, no threat to Ishmael. However, Doug and Superboy, on the other hand, Doug is definitely under threat for the Ferrari Superboy. Again, Supra comes out of the chicane sideways, as does Doug. They look both. Yeah, it looks like Doug might have actually got a better exit this time around. He's able to keep some distance between him and Superboy this time, so I had to take such a tight line this time around, which is good for this guy, as he tends to have issues with turning, we see. Flirting with that curb. Good way to get spun around if you're not careful with your throttle application there. See Superboy trying to get the better exit here. But it looks like right now Doug is putting the car in all the right ways. Woo! That'll let Superboy get some ground up. Again, that rear end just kicked out from behind him. Coming into the final corner to lap 7, we see Superboy trying to get a better line at least. And I think he does get the better exit as well. These two are slowly pulling away from the Porsche bar. Check on the rest of the field. Look at that bar. He's right there. He's losing touch. The two Ferraris in front of him. The Viper's losing touch to everybody in front of him, but we see Tap is way behind now. He must have spun that Mercedes again. He is just not having a good day, but he's still out there pushing forward, which is what we want to see out of these guys. Coming back to the front, got a nice, tidy, sizable lead between Ishmael and Petrol. These two have combined. We got a big lead over the two Ferraris, which are still back-to-back. Not quite a bumper-to-bumper here, but they are still right together, close together. Doug has built up a little gap, and now might be about the second gap between the two Ferraris. One thing we see about the 458 is that it's got the pull over the 296. You see in that sweeping left-hander, Super is closing in some ground. Basically on that slick AstroTurf, that's going to hurt him over time. Yeah, that's flirting with disaster there, that is. Slowly, he does seem to be reeling in the 296 in front of him. Doug seems to be struggling with that particular corner. We keep seeing that rear end want to kick out from about when he goes around it. Whether it's just overly ambitious throttle input or that Ferrari just does not have a lot of rear grip out of that corner. Could it be a little too aero dependent for these low speed corners? Alright, now Barr's not too far behind these two, but he is losing touch. He's got to find some pace somewhere if he wants to rejoin the battle. And what we see, there's still a sizable gap between Ishmael and Petrol. And that gap is growing between Petrol and Doug, it seems to be. And for the time being, Doug has put a small gap over Superboy. But whether he can maintain that gap is going to really depend on how well Superboy takes these corners in the technical sector here. Superboy seems to have the advantage through this second half of the track. First half of the track really seems to be more advantage Doug. Second half of the track, Superboy. Both of these Ferraris are pulling away from the Porsche bar, and they're all pulling away from the Viper, the damn cat. Okay, for the time being, he's got a respectable gap to the Mercedes tap behind him, but that gap is shrinking, slowly but surely. Going back to the front, we see the Audi of Ishmael starting lap 10. Still having held the lead the entire time. We're 17 and a half minutes into the race. And this has been a very uneventful race so far for Ishmael. He hasn't really been contested yet. He hasn't been challenged. He's just out there putting in lap after lap, challenging these guys behind him to do something, to catch up to him, to get ahead of him. I see Petrol and Doug are both purple sectors coming in at the end of sector 1. Right now Doug has got about a 2-second gap over Superboy. He's got about a 3-second gap over Barr. Ishmael also has a purple sector coming out of sector 2. Was Doug still purple coming at the end of sector 2? He lost a good chunk of time. And the gap between Ishmael and Petrol is growing again. So seem to be yo-yoing. At one point, Petrol was about, let's say, 3/4 of a second back at one point. But that gap is now about 3 seconds. gap between Petrol and Doug is growing. Let's see, right now it's probably about 10-15 seconds. Woo! Hold on to it, Bubba. Doug came out of the final corner, basically completely sideways. That's going to let Superboy gain some ground on him. There's still about a couple seconds between the two Ferraris. I think Superboy just got a significantly better exit out of the hairpin than Doug. He's going to close in a lot out of that gap now. Superboy, I think, just got a better exit out of the chicane as well. Let him close in even more on him. Keep this up and not get held up getting around by Doug, he actually might be able to catch up to Petrol again. Get back into that fight for the middle of the podium at least. Right now, that's a long ways off. He's got to get around Doug. He's going to do that. We are 21 minutes in. 39 minutes remaining. Seems to get a better run through here. That like just millimeters from the wall. Pushing to the limit. What we see at the moment, Ishmael's got the fastest lap of 155.6. Which is not what this guy wants to see, because that's another point gone from his lead should Ishmael hold on to that to the end of the race. Check it in on bar here, make sure he's still close by. He's still close by. He's still watching these two, but he's definitely out of the fight for the moment. Got a lot of work in front of him if he wants to catch up to the two Ferraris. Viper's got a lot of work to go if he wants to get into any kind of fight. Just to get out of 6th, then we have Mercedes and Tap who's still trucking along, but that gap is like yo-yoing between him and the Viper, it seems like. Coming back to the front, Ishmael's got a 4 or 5 second gap over Petrol now. Two Ferraris are Super's looking up the inside now. Coming in with a sweeping left-hander. For the time being, it looks like Super has finally reclaimed that position. Got back into 3rd. Now he's got to try to seal the deal to kind of get away from any counter attack by Doug. Ooh, Super went wide through there. Like it was picking point. That's going to let Doug have the outside here, which sets it up for the inside for the final 2 corners. Which means Superboy does not hold on to 3rd place, but he's going to try to switch around here. Doug holding on to that inside spot. Coming into turn 1. Super low, like he wanted to make a move to the inside, but he just could not get the power to the wheels down. Lost a bit of traction and allowed Doug to get away from him for a bit. Superboy's got to resettle back down, run the car back down, dial it back in, and attack again. This battle ain't over. And at the moment, this is the only battle on track. There are sizable gaps everywhere else. Superboy again took a peek to the inside there, but in the end just lined up behind going to the chicane. Again, Superboy gets the better exit out of the chicane. Again, taking the defensive inside line, forcing the 458 of Superboy to go the long way around if he's going to go. And once again, the long way around proves to not be particularly effective for Superboy. So again, he just ties up, tucking it back in behind Doug, who goes very wide. That mistake gives Superboy third place, but now again he's got to hold the retaliation here from Doug. Retaliation's a wrong word, but you know what I mean here. Doug's gonna obviously try to fight back and reclaim third place. Superboy has got to start putting a distance, if not putting up a distance between him and Doug, at least closing the distance between him and Petrol. The further down the field this guy is, the more of a gap, the more Ishmael claims of that gap between him and closes the gap between him and the points. And the last thing Superboy needs, if he wants to hold on to the lead point-wise, is for Ishmael to win, take the fastest lap, and he himself not have a podium finish. If my math actually is correct, if Ishmael wins this race and Superboy finishes off the podium, thinks Ishmael takes the points lead, even if he does not have fastest lap. So for Superboy, if he wants to stay in the points lead out of this round, he has got to gain some positions. It starts by him trying to pull a gap over Doug Barrow, which at the moment he does seem to be doing. It's about 3/4 of a second gap between the two Ferraris. And this is, woo, Super goes sliding out of that corner. Don't know how he kept it out of the wall. If he did, if he cut into the wall, it was a very gentle tap. But that sliding maneuver is not something you want to be doing. That's asking for a smack into the side of the wall. That would be front arrow and right side damage if he gets that wall was right. But the way he trucked along, he definitely stayed out of the wall. He stayed out of damage. And right now, we know Superboy cannot see Petrol. He might actually be able to see Petrol once he comes around the hairpin. But he's way off in the distance. Let's check on these two up here. Yep, this is a big and growing gap between the Audi and the Mercedes. And the gap is, there is now a sizable gap between Supra and Doug. So now Supra has built the gap he needed. Now he can just focus in on building the gap, or closing the gap rather, between him and second place Petrol. You see Tap is going into the pits. So I think what's going on here is they just sitting there looking at it. They're looking at something's up with that light blue Mercedes. Could be a suspension issue from from the early spin we saw. Or that is unfortunate. He's had to pull it into the pits. Petrol here in second, and a growing gap between him and Ishmael. Question is, can Super close the gap between him and that Mercedes. Doug is obviously not going to be content staying at fourth. He's going to want to close that gap back between him and Superboy. I think I know Doug's going to want to finish on the podium. Barr chilling here in fifth. Kind of just running his race at the moment. Getting a little twisty there. A little wide. See the damn cat here, the Viper. He's going into pits. Barely any fuel left in it. But depending on when he comes out, it might just be enough for a one stop. If he can do a one stop, yeah, everybody's doing a one stop. At this point, we are at just now past the 30-minute mark. 30 minutes, 30 seconds in. Metro is here in second. Still here in third. He's got a gap to close between him and in front of him. He's also got to try to maintain or build the gap between him and the Ferrari behind him. You see Ishmael has gone into the pits. The Mercedes Petrol is following. The Supra following. Yep, Supra is going into the pits. What about Doug? Nope, Doug is staying out. He's going to get him another lap in. Barr is staying out. They're still working on that Mercedes or tap. Alright. So for the time being, Doug has got the lead. Ishmael is coming out here in second. A couple seconds behind Doug. We have Barr in third. He goes wide through that corner again. And he's got Petrol trying to close in behind him. See Superboy having come out here in fifth. Got a decent little gap to him and Petrol. The damn cat chugging along here in sixth. Still keeping it going, so we want to see that. He ain't had to pull that Viper in yet. But he does seem to be struggling. And so Doug is going yet another lap. Nope. Wrong part of the track. Ishmael is right there. He does look to be closing in on Doug. There's probably a difference in an entire compound here at play. Doug's still going, the Par is still going here in third, and he's got Petrol trying to close in behind him. Alright, now Superboy is wanting to take advantage of being on slightly fresher tires than that Mercedes. Trying to close in some ground here. Doug is going into pits now, which is going to give the lead back to Ishmael. Barr's gone as far as he dares go. That's going to give second place back to Petrol. And Superboy is going to likely retain third. Depends on where Doug comes out. Definitely gonna be something to watch. Yep. Superboy is gonna hold on to third place. Doug is coming out right behind him though. Barr is coming out here in fifth. Nothing to worry about behind him. And he's got some fresh tires on, so maybe he can close in on these two Ferraris in front of him, especially if they start getting into it. Meanwhile, Ishmael is again back where he started, back in the front, back in the lead. And kind of like what we were saying before, if you let him start on pole, he tends to just run away with it. That's kind of what he's done this round. He's yet to really been challenged this round. He's not really been under threat, under any kind of pressure. Just smooth, clean, consistent laps. Lap after lap after lap. Petrol right now has got a sizable gap between him and Ishmael, but there's also a sizable gap between him and Superboy. Where Superboy is going to want to close that gap in because he wants to eventually be trying to challenge Ishmael, but that's a long gap to close in. And he's only got 25 minutes at this point to do it. Of course, for now, his main focus seems to be just closing in on this purple and blue Mercedes of Petrol that's currently occupying second place. Doug obviously is going to want to try to keep in the grasp of Superboy, because if Superboy can make short work of Petrol, that might be a position for him to gain as well. At this point, Barr still keeping on, still trucking. He's still close to these two Ferraris. It's clear right now Superboy has got the big advantage over Doug at this stage of the race. That is a big and growing gap between the two Ferraris. And it does seem like the gap between Petrol and Superboy here is shrinking a little bit, little by little. At the moment, this guy's going unchallenged so far this race. Petrol took second place very early on from Superboy. That may have just been tire advantage at the time. Now the roles may be reversed. Super's here in third, and he is rapidly chomping down on the distance between him and Petrol. That gap has shrunk a lot over the past couple of laps. Oh boy, does he go wide there. And with that, he does take the fastest lap. And he goes wide out of turn one. He's trying to carry a lot of speed. Trying to carry too much speed even. Alright, coming into fourth right now in fourth place we still have Doug. He is losing ground to this Ferrari in front of him. He doesn't seem to be losing ground to the Porsche behind him, which is good for him at least. But Barwell does want to be closing in on this Ferrari in front of him. That is a big gap between the Mercedes, and it does seem to be growing. The gap between Audi and Mercedes is growing. The gap between Mercedes and Ferrari is closing. At this point, Super should be able to, if he not see the Mercedes in front of him at that time, he's definitely close enough to hear him. So here in fourth, Barr still going in fifth. The damn cat's still chugging along here in sixth. And they're still investigating an issue with that Mercedes tap. Meanwhile, Ishmael's still got a solid lead over Petrol here in second. Oh yeah, we know Superboy can see Petrol now. Well, at least some of these longer straights, maybe. But it does seem like this gap between these two is closing. So here, near the end of closer to the end of the race, this might become a battle for second. And if I ain't mistaken, this gap between this Porsche bar and the Ferrari of Doug actually does seem to be going down. It seems like Doug might be might be struggling. He might have gone to hards. He might have started on mediums. If he's on hards now, that's going to be a tough ask because I'm pretty sure Bar is on mediums at this stage. Or this may be one of those cars that actually does better when it has less grip. Who knows? Doug is struggling with that chicane. He has the entire race, it seems like. Cars slowly but surely chipping away at him. Yeah, Ishmael here in second place still going, still chugging. Still unchallenged for the lead. Petrol was in second place. He took it early. And he's held it all the way up until now. So far, he's still got it. But this Ferrari is closing in on him. It's chipping away. It looks like about second by second. Lap by lap. For the most part, Super is showing better pace since this pit stop. And Superboy just improved on his best lap of 51:55.3. Is currently the fastest lap. Oh, whoa, he went way wide there. Look at him, just trying not to lose the car on going on the curb, and he picks up a half-second penalty, going a mile off track. Doug is here in fourth, still going along, cruising, but the alarming thing should be for him is when he peeks at his rear view, he sees this purple and green Porsche bar slowly reeling him in. Meanwhile, the damn guy's still going along, still cruising. At this point, I think he's just trying to just get through this thing at this point. But he's still going, so that's what we want to see. Alright, we got Ishmael here, and so he's still got a lead. He's got a solid gap to Petrol, who's got a not so solid gap to Superboy. But having served a penalty, that's going to give him a little bit of a breather. Add a lap or two before this Ferrari catches up to him. But it does seem to be that he is going to catch him sooner or later. And Doug is losing touch to Superboy more and more each lap. And Barr is kind of like Superboy to Petrol. Barr is corner by corner, reeling Doug in. The gap between Ishmael and Petrol is probably 15-ish seconds at this point. Somewhere in that ballpark. Meanwhile, the gap between Petrol and Superboy is down to about 4 seconds. And corner by corner, that gap between these two is closing quite a bit. Likewise, Doug has got Barr closing in on reeling him in. Seems the track's finally in a condition that at least sort of favors the Porsche. Maybe it's finally got enough rubber on the road to Actually, help this guy grip. Ooh wee! Does he get a little sideways moment? Come out of the chicane. Should let Doug get a bit of a breather. Alright, just about 15 minutes to go, and we're about to have a couple of battles in our hands. One of them was going to be a battle for second, the other a battle for fourth. Just watching this gap close corner by corner. Right now, Super is about a second. Holy cow, 155.217 is now the fastest lap by Superboy. Almost exactly 2 seconds faster than Petrol's previous lap. A 155.217, a 157.217. Right now, Super is actually closing in on Ishmael, but I have a sneaky feeling for that guy, too little, too late. But 14 minutes to go, crazier things have happened. It's been a while in this race since Petrol last had any kind of pressure on him. If he ever had pressure on him. But right now it's Super's time to put some pressure on the Mercedes. And Doug is in a very similar situation with Barry behind him. This is probably the more important battle to keep an eye on. As for Superboy, every position matters. Fastest lap, holding fastest lap is a good thing for him. That's one additional point that he does not lose to Ishmael. However, the difference between him being in second and him being in third is significant in regards to where they stand with Ishmael. Petrol's trying to hold him to the outside right now. Trying to keep that Porsche behind him, Ferrari behind him, sorry. There's a portion of the field, but it's not attacking the Mercedes right now. Porsche right now is attacking the Ferrari of Doug Barrow. Petrol got a little slideways going through that little corner. That was a sweeping right-hander. Let Superboy get alongside him. But the front of the Mercedes it enabled him to hold on to that inside line. Now Petrol's taking a defensive inside line heading toward the chicane on the straight. This means that Superboy is going to have, if he's going to make a move here, he's going to have to do it the long way. Gets smart about it and decides to just tuck in behind the Mercedes. Tries to set up a better exit, but the line of the Mercedes kind of blocks that off. Now again, he's got to go the long way around. Will it work on the Mercedes? It did not work on the Ferrari of Doug either time he tried it. And he is 0 for 3 now, trying to make the long way work on the corner. Ferrari got the better setup through this sequence of corners, but solid defense by Petrol. Looks like he may have just clipped the wall there, which is not what he wanted at all. Super goes very wide. Little tap between the two there. Petrol does keep the car under him. And again, the defensive inside line by the Mercedes. Again, trying to make the Ferrari go around the long way. And this time I think the Ferrari has the advantage, and the second place moves Superboy. Now can Petrol respond? It's definitely in the interest of Superboy that he doesn't respond. But Petrol, being the competitor that he is, we know he is going to fight to try to reclaim that position. But I think there is a big tire difference. Super is on mediums. I believe Petrol at this stage is on hards. So that was valiant effort by Petrol, but I think in the end, this was going to be the result. Superboy getting around. And now Ferrari is going to try to run away from the Mercedes and try to close in over the final 10 minutes to the Audi of Ishmael. Meanwhile, we're going to check on the battle between Doug and Barr. So far, things between these two are about where we left them a couple of laps ago. Barr right on the tail of Doug. And Barr goes very wide there, carried way too much speed. That's going to give Doug a moment to breathe. And already we see about a second or second and a half gap already built between Superboy and Petrol. Now with just over 8.5 minutes remaining, Super has got a large deficit between him and Ishmael to work down. Can he do it? If he's able to consistently hit 55s, I don't think it'll be enough. 8 minutes to go. That is going to be 4, maybe 5 laps. And this is a roughly 10-15 second gap between Ishmael and Superboy. I don't expect Superboy to give up on it, but it's a tall ask to close in the gap between him and Ishmael and make this a battle for the finish. But just under 8 minutes to go. Anything can happen. And we see Doug and Barr still closing in. Barr is closing in on on Doug again. Just setting up to be a nice battle within the next lap. Maybe the next few corners. It'll be battle on between these two again. See the Viper going wide there. However, he's still chugging along. He's still cruising. Solid points, even if it's maybe not the race he wanted. Small field might help him. Gain a spot or two on with the points. And unfortunately for TAP, they're still investigating what's going on with that car. Alright, so back to the front, we have Ishmael. He's got a sizable gap between him and Superboy. It does seem to be closing bit by bit as Superboy has gotten around Petrol. Got Doug with Barr hot on his heels coming into the hairpin. I think Barr misjudges braking there with overspeed, or either that or he's feed it off or trying to get a better exit one. And better exit indeed for the Porsche. And to fourth place goes Barr. Through the chicane. Kind of sliding. Looks like Doug gets a better run out of the chicane. So, battle is not over between these two. Doug can respond. Just can he Can he close in over all of these corners? Or can Barr, or does Barr have, will have Barr have superior grip going through these set of corners here? So far, it seems like Barr with the advantage. Even though Doug sits over the better line. This may be a yo-yo between these two, but I think the yo-yo's still going to favor Barr. Five minutes to go. The gap between Ishmael and Superboy is closing. Is it closing fast enough? That is the question. Second per lap. Is that enough? It's like Barr is pulling away from Doug, so in the end, it's like Barr got the better end of that exchange between the two as well, and that's Barr might actually be able to challenge Pedro here for the final podium position. But that's assuming he can close that gap in 4 minutes. And they have yet to identify the issue with that Mercedes. That is unfortunate to see that car stricken so long in pit. This gap is shrinking, but I don't think it's shrinking fast enough. 3.5 minutes remain. The gap is growing between the Ferrari and Mercedes. And the gap is shrinking between the Porsche and Mercedes. Slowly but surely. And the gap is growing between Porsche and Ferrari. At this point, Super, I think, could have just got a peek of Ishmael at the end of the straight. With 3 minutes remaining. Basically, it means there's 2 laps remaining in the race. Looks like they did finally identify the issue that was plaguing that Mercedes. He comes out with 2 to go. Good to see him rolling at least. Unfortunately, that is going to hurt him in the points. Oh, not really. It's 7th of 7. That's actually still good points. That's an advantage of small field. Hopefully we have a full grid next time. I just think there's so much going on for a lot of people this weekend, so that's why a lot of folks didn't make it this week. So Barr has less than 2 minutes if he wants to make a catch up to Petrol and make a move. He's closing down on the Mercedes. This may not be quick enough. Likewise, Supra is reeling in the Saudi corner by corner. But that may be too little too late. With a minute and a second or so to go, this is essentially the final lap. Super has got to close what looks to be about 9-10 seconds. The gap was bigger earlier, but it's I think just going to be too much to overcome. This is about 8, 9, 10-second gap, somewhere in that ballpark. Unless Ishmael makes a serious mistake, Ishmael is going to cruise to the win. And Superboy's got to not be too so careless that he makes a mistake that costs him his position to petrol. Because unless he makes a serious mistake, he's basically got third place locked in. You have Bar here in fourth, Doug here in fifth. The Viper, the damn cat, trucking along might be more accurate here at this point. We have the Mercedes of Tap. Here in seventh. Sitting in the pits for so long. This is unfortunate. Let's watch the Viper come across the line. First car to carry the checker, but he finishes sixth. Got the light blue Mercedes a Tap. Was able to get the car out in the end, but too little too late. Ishmael takes the win at the end. Superboy about 8-9 seconds behind. Finishes in second. We have Petrol here in third. Solid race from the Mercedes. Barr just did not have enough time to catch up to that Mercedes once he got around the Ferrari of Doug. Barr finishes the race in fourth, and Doug brings it home in fifth. So coming along at the end here, we see Ishmael takes the win, but does not take fastest lap. Fastest lap belongs to second place, Superboy, with a 155.217. Petrol finishes in third, Barr in fourth, Doug Barrow in fifth, the Damn Cat in sixth, and Tap bringing it in the Rome in the rear in seventh. Striking for most of the race, but once you get it back out there, you got it back out there and finish strong. Alright, this was round 8. We have one more round to go. That will be in 2 weeks' time at Road Atlanta. It's going to be fun. It's going to be interesting. That's definitely going to be an exciting race. Road Atlanta always makes for good racing. So I'm looking forward to that, both from the cockpit and from the booth. As always, appreciate the likes, the shares, follows, helps the respective channels grow, both the Damn Cat Gaming and the GTRC YouTube channel. You can give a like, share, follow on each channel. We would all appreciate that. Appreciate you coming along. And I hope to catch you all next time. Until then.